Okay, so today I'm going to do two myofascial lengthening and release techniques on the hamstring and gastrocnemius and soleus group, primarily the soleus. We're going to go through a self-myofascial release technique, or SMR, for each of those muscle groups, a neuromuscular lengthening technique for each, and a static stretching technique for each. I'll be demonstrating and cueing them as we go along. Alright, so first up is our two self-myofascial release techniques. For this I'm going to be using the foam roller. So the first one I'm going to do is the soleus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly roll the foam roller along the afflicted muscle group until I find the most painful area. I'm going to apply pressure to it to relax the GTO, and I'm going to hold this for one set of 30 to 90 seconds. And the next group I'm going to do is I will roll again on the hamstring, doing the same technique, finding the most painful spot, applying pressure, and holding again for one set of 30 to 90 seconds. Alright, so now we're going to have our cue our client to do the same thing, the two self-myofascial release techniques on the foam roller. So what I'm going to get you to do is just roll gently along the soleus until you find the area that's the most sensitive, or you find a decent trigger point. Apply pressure to that, and you're going to hold that for one set of 30 to 90 seconds. At this point, I'd just like to make a note that depending on the deviation that we find in our assessments, we would only do this on possibly one side if it's only affecting one side, or on both sides if it is in fact affecting both sides. So the next thing after that soleus, if we're just going to go ahead and assume you only had a deviation on the right one given your assessment, you'll move on to the hamstring group. So same thing, roll gently over the hamstrings until you find the most tender area or a good trigger point. Good, and apply pressure. Excellent. And once again, this would be held for a total of 30 to 90 seconds on one or both sides, depending what was seen during the assessment. Alright, so now I'm going to demonstrate our two neuromuscular lengthening techniques. So I'm going to start with the soleus and move into the hamstrings. So first thing I'm going to do is if I'm going to do the PNF, or proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretching on myself to demonstrate, what I'll first do is I will find my beginning end range of motion. I will contract for 7 to 15 seconds, actively contracting against the resistance, which is in this case the rope. Then I'll relax and allow the stretch to find my new end range of motion. I'll hold this for 20 to 30 seconds, and this will constitute one repetition. I'll repeat this for 1 to 3 repetitions, or 3 sets total, or 1 to 3 sets total, I guess. For the hamstring, what it'll look like is the same thing. So using the rope, I will first find my end range. I'll hold this, then I'll contract against the rope for 7 to 15 seconds again. Then what I'll do is I'll relax and I'll have to stretch once again for 20 to 30 seconds. This occurs for 1 to 3 sets, and each cycle of contract and stretching constitutes one set. Okay, so now I'm going to cue these two neuromuscular lengthening techniques on my client. The first thing we're going to do is the soleus, so I'll get you to take that rope, wrap it firmly around your hands, and put it over the ball of your foot. Good, so you'll keep a straight leg this entire time, pressing the knee into the floor, and I get you to pull back on the rope on the ball of your foot until you find your end range of motion. Once you find that, I want you to begin pushing your foot into the rope, but using your hands and the rope to not allow it to move for 7 to 15 seconds. After that time occurs, what you'll do is you'll just again pull back on the rope that's sitting over the ball of your foot for 20 to 30 seconds, finding the new end range of motion, and that'll constitute one set. You'll repeat this 1 to 3 times. So I just like to make a point here of saying that if I did have a cameraman, as a trainer, what I could do is I could have my hands in the place of the rope and have her push into my hands, and again be doing this myself, so finding her end range of motion for her and allowing her to contract into my resistance versus her own. What we'll do now is we'll move on to your hamstring neuromuscular lengthening technique. So I'll get you to lay flat on your back. The rope is going to go over your foot, and it's going to have to be above the knee. So similar to the soleus stretch, you'll pull your leg back until you find your end range of motion. Once you've done this, you'll push into the rope for 7 to 15 seconds. When this is done, you'll pull back on the rope, find your new end range of motion, hold this for 20 to 30 seconds, and you'll repeat this 1 to 3 times. Once again, I'd like to make a note that if a cameraman allowed it, as a trainer, what I could do for this one is I could place my shoulder underneath the leg and have her push into my shoulder for the contraction. And then again, just move myself forward with the shoulder and the limb in question forward to find the new end range of motion, and again repeat that 1 to 3 times. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate our 2 static stretching techniques. These are going to be done for 20 to 30 seconds, and they're going to be repeated 1 to 4 times, so for either 1 to 4 repetitions or 1 to 4 sets, depending on how you look at it, if you're resting in between. So the first one we'll do is the hamstring stretch, actually. So simply what you can do is you can just relax through the core and just try and lean down and touch your toes. So again, we're not going to have this ballistics, we're not going to bounce down to the toes, just gently, slowly go down until we find our end range of motion. And we're going to hang out here for 20 to 30 seconds. And relax, and repeat that 1 to 4 times. So now for the soleus and gastrocnemius complex, what we could do is facing a wall, plant ourselves, and push forward against the wall. The key here being that if the back leg is straight, we're going to be stretching out the gastrocnemius, and if we bend it, we'll be primarily focusing on the soleus. Once again, both of these will be done 1 to 4 times for 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, so now we're going to cue our 2 static stretching techniques. So the first one we're going to do is the hamstring. So I'll get you to just place your arms in front of you, have your feet shoulder width apart, toes pointing straight ahead. What you're going to do is just dangling arms in front of you, flex at the hips, try and touch your toes, go down nice and slow, don't bounce in the movement, and then once you've found your end range of motion, all you'll do is you'll stay there for 20 to 30 seconds. Very good. This would be done for that length of time, and then for 1 to 4 repetitions. The next one we're going to move into is the gastrocnemius and soleus complex. So if I could just get you to face the wall, plant yourself against the wall firmly with your hands, 1 foot towards the wall and 1 foot back. Very good. So the first thing you'll do here is keep that back leg straight. This will put the focus on the gastrocnemius. Again, this would be held for 20 to 30 seconds for 1 to 4 sets. And now what I'll get you to do is to bend the back leg, and this will place the focus primarily onto the soleus. Again, for 1 to 4 repetitions for 20 to 30 seconds. This will conclude our myofascial lengthening and release technique video. We did an SMR technique for each muscle group, a static stretching technique for each muscle group, and a lengthening technique for each muscle group. Thank you.